Welcome to the Curio shop. Hope you find what you're looking for.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? I just wanted to come on here and make a video about the new OB19 update and the new Curio system, specifically for Conquest, and how it impacts the vision for all 5 roles, but specifically support. So I guess the first thing I want to talk about is just what each of the new Curios are, and then also the warding Chalice that got added. Generally, Curios are just mode-specific items that everyone's access to. They default by putting in your second active item slot, but you can kind of move them around however you want. They're free, and you can switch them out at any time. Switching them out does not reset their cooldown. So you're not able to like place a Bifrost Shard and then switch to Gjallerflare or something like that and get the cooldown refreshed. That's not how it's going to work. But basically there's 3 different Curios. The first one is the Bifrost Shard, and it's basically just your regular ward. It's pretty similar to just the warding shard that we had in Smite 1. But on use, you place a ward, and it lasts 90 seconds or until it's destroyed, and you can use it every 90 seconds. So every role in the game gets this one by default. It's the default Curio, but if you want to change it for other ones, you can change it. The second one is the Gjallerflare. This one is kind of similar to Raven Ward from Smite 1. Basically, you shoot out the flare, and it goes in a straight line, and it reveals enemies while it's flying. And then it travels up to 44 meters, which is like pretty far. You can actually see like a pretty good distance away with it. And then on refire, or like after the travel time of 5 seconds is up, it detonates, and then it lights up a huge area on the map. It's like really, really large. It's kind of crazy actually how big it is. And then it stays on the map, keeping enemies revealed for 6 seconds. The one thing to note about this one is, I don't know if this is intended or if it's just a current bug, but every time you launch one of these, it's globally revealed, so like the other team can see like the ward icon moving across the map and see where your Gjallerflare is, even if it's not in line of sight. So you just like take that into consideration when you're using it. And then this one's on a longer cooldown than the Bifrost Shard. It's on a 120-second cooldown. And then the last Curio is Heimdallr's Sight. And basically for this one, on use, you pulse the reveal area 4 times over 4 seconds, and you reveal enemies within 8.8 meters. So anyone that's invisible, so like Loki or, like Morrigan, non-aspect, or you can kind of see people like around walls a little bit. It's not really super useful for that. I think it's really the second part of it that's really good, is reveals wards. So it reveals enemies on stealth, but it also reveals enemies it also reveals wards. This is basically a sentry ward that you have in your pocket on a 90-second cooldown that's completely free. So I think that one's particularly good. And then in addition to the Curios, they also added the warding Chalice. This is the same exact deal from Smite 1. Costs 400 gold. You get 2 charges. You can place a ward, and then they last 2 minutes or until they're destroyed, and they're refilled every time you go back to base. So you don't need to continuously buy wards if you have this Chalice, but it costs 400 gold. Wards usually cost 50 gold. So if you do the math, you kind of need to place more than 8 wards for this to be a cost-effective consumable. Okay, I think next I just kind of want to talk about what like the general uses for each one is, and what I think role by role people will kind of be doing. I think the most widely used one, probably just because it's like the base default option, will probably be the Bifrost Shard. It's also just the easiest one to use. You just get a free ward every 90 seconds. It's pretty simple. I think in general, you'll see backline and like solo lane building this a lot. Like in the beginning of the game, probably just using it to like, ward out junglers, ward out ganks, but also putting it like in bushes and lane. That can be kind of useful. So I think that'll probably be the main one, especially for early game. And then I think as it transitions into late game, more people will be using Gjallerflare and kind of using that to set up for like your FG, your team fight, when you're fighting in the jungle. Just having such a large vision from so far away, I think is extremely useful. So I think a lot of people will kind of transition to that late game. There is maybe some exception though that maybe ADCs and solos might be using Gjallerflare to kind of prevent invades of their first buff in a way. So, so maybe they'll shoot the Gjallerflare to the enemy, purple or blue, or maybe they'll use it on top of themselves, just kind of refiring it quickly, so that way they can get big vision while they're clearing their stuff to make sure they don't get invaded. So there's a few exceptions, but I think in general, for support, you're either going to see players going Bifrost Shard at the beginning and then transitioning to Heimdall's Sight later, or just straight up starting Heimdall's Sight. And I'm going to kind of explain what I think is like the optimal support start right now, using the new Curios. All right, so here I'm just going to show some like a gameplay example from the other day of what I think that maybe, supports might start doing with the new Curios. So I think generally I'm going to keep doing the same thing I'm doing. I'm still going to buy 2 wards and a Health Chalice. Health Chalice is still super broken, so I want to make sure I have that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and place a ward early, usually like 30 seconds before the game starts, right in their bush, but to the point where you can kind of see the purple buff. And that ward will actually capture the purple buff timer. So once they clear it, I'll be able to see that, and then know when it's back up, or know when they clear it and when they're gonna get to lane, if they're gonna be late or early or whatever. And then you can see here I didn't actually go the Bifrost Shard. I actually went Heimdallr's Sight, and so I think starting this is particularly good because people like to walk over and place wards. And so if you have this, 1, you can clear that ward, and then 2. You can get the 50 gold. And since everyone else is going to have a Bifrost Shard, I kind of have a feeling that more and more people are going to be placing wards on enemy buffs like before the game starts. So I think this is almost like a free 50 or even 100 gold if they stack it on top of each other. So then I think like from there, you kind of play generally you play the whole lane how you will. We'll go and clear the lane here, but then like right after we get pressure on this first or second wave, I'm going to actually refresh my ward over on the left-hand side, and you'll see me do it probably with about like a minute and 15. So that way you can kind of get the vision for the jungler coming, and then just keep them away from this neutral buff. But then this whole time and kind of like for the rest of the game, I'm just going to be playing to de-ward this enemy. And this is kind of a good example too. This enemy Cerberus, if I press tab, you'll see it, but he actually built warding Chalice first, so I actually end up getting a ton of value out of this Heimdall's Sight. So yeah, come over here about a minute and 15, refresh that ward, make sure the jungler doesn't come over, so we have strong pressure for this red buff. And then I think here in a couple seconds as well, yeah, right as we step into this lane, that Cerberus just placed a ward in that bush back there. So I'm just going to walk back over there and just use Heimdall's Sight, clear that down. And then now I'm up 100 gold. It's kind of evened out the wards that I bought at the beginning of the game, and I've kept his vision off the map. So I think it's a pretty solid start. There's maybe other starts that you could go. Just kind of, for example, you could do what I did, buy the Health Chalice, 2 wards, and use Heimdall's Sight. You could do the same thing, buy Health Chalice, 2 wards, and go Bifrost Shard. Or you could maybe get rid of those 2 wards and go multi. I probably wouldn't do that, but it's up to you. And then you could also do what this enemy support did, buy Health Chalice, and buy Ward Chalice. But I'll kind of get into why I think Ward Chalice isn't really viable at the moment. So I think the big problem with Ward Chalice in this game is just the fact that there's so many other consumables that you'll need. I mean, and it's not like a whole lot of them, but if you kind of think about it, like Naga's, Bomb, and then Dagger, these are kind of things that like the support is often picking up, especially bombs, and Nagas too. You're often picking them up, and then sometimes you're picking them up in situations where you're trying to grab them really quickly, either from your teammates or also like if you're trying to just pick up Dagger, like if there's a team fight and Fire Giant goes down and you're just trying to get Dagger so the other team doesn't get it. You're quickly trying to get it. If you're stuck with Health Chalice and Warding Chalice, you won't be able to drop either of those to pick up any of these other consumables. And I think it's almost impossible to get rid of Health Chalice in this game. Maybe there's some situations in which I might sell my Health Chalice. If I have like Health Chalice and Bomb and then I need to buy wards or something like that. But I think in general, like Health Chalice is so strong, you don't really want to sell it. Like you don't really like selling it and then putting yourself in a position where you have 2 chalices is kind of pretty difficult. So I think generally Ward Chalice isn't really on my radar, especially too, because maybe it's something I'd pick up later in the game. But, another thing that I've kind of done, and I'll put that up here on screen, just an example, I don't really think that I've really, especially in ranked, like I'm not really warding as much as maybe I would in a comp game. So I'm not really getting the value out of warding Chalice with it being 400 gold. Like if sometimes I buy it and I'm not even placing the 8 wards. So for me, I think it's still kind of up in the air. There's not really you should always do this or always have this Chalice or never buy this Chalice or that kind of thing. You should sort of feel it out. But I think for me, I'll probably be staying away from Ward Chalice for right now and just continue to buy single wards. Okay, so just one last kind of like tip and just explanation of a new thing they added. So the Cyclops camp got changed from dropping a ward to dropping a buff that actually decreases the timer for your Curio. So we'll just go ahead and kill this here. But I think this buff is actually pretty strong if you can play it right. And I think that maybe there's another strategy that support should be trying to focus on, where maybe you convince your jungler. This is hard to do in a ranked game, right? But I think maybe you convince your jungler to leave these on the ground. So then you as a support, you can go over and you can sentry a ward. Maybe you go over, you find a ward over here, you sentry it, and you take it down. And then you walk back over to this buff. And then you just instantly refresh your Heimdallr site, like right after you clear the ward. So maybe I was coming from duo and I clear a ward here and then I walk over, pick this up, insta refresh it. That's like 45 seconds off this, because it cuts it in half. So if I had 30 seconds left, it would cut it to 15 or, whatever. But if you can kind of min-max this and pick this up from the camp just laying down there, then you get this refunded and then now I can just come straight back to lane and de-ward again. So I think you should definitely try to communicate with your team about maybe leaving these on the ground and then just using them as a strategy to de-ward. I think you'll definitely be seeing this in comp. So when you watch like Smite Prime or high level OSL or whatever you're watching, you'll probably see that. So I don't know, maybe work with your duo Q jungler and try to make this happen in ranked. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments if you guys have thought of any cool new good strategies with the new Curios or anything else this patch. I will be updating my support guide, linked below, with all kinds of new stuff right after I finish making this video. So you'll see some updated stuff in there. Go check it out. Thanks for the support, and I'll see you in the next one.